Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I have some information I would like to share with you. I have received a review copy from Games Workshop of the new Psychic Awakening book called Faith and Fury. And this book includes new rules for Space Marines, Black Templars, and Chaos Space Marines. So in this video I will cover all the Space Marine stuff, and I will have separate videos covering the Black Templars rules and the Chaos Space Marine rules. Those videos should be up the same day as this one, but if they aren't, they will be out within a day or two of this video being released. I'd also like to thank Games Workshop for sending me out this review copy so I can give you guys and gals my competitive focused perspective on all these new rules. Pre-order for this book is available today, and the book will be fully released on November 23rd. And if you play any of these armies, then I highly recommend picking up this book to supplement your army. So with all of that said, let's dive into the new Space Marine rules that are found in this book. So to start off, the new Space Marine rules are only for the chapters from the Space Marine Codex, and do not affect Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, or Death Watch, which is very unfortunate, but I'm sure their time will come. The rules found in this book for Space Marines are new chapter-specific litanies you can put on Chaplains as long as they belong to that chapter, upgrade stratagems for different characters like Chaplains, Ancients, Librarians, and other characters. And that's it. So nothing too huge like full-on supplements or as much stuff as the Black Templars or the Chaos gets in this book, but it's big enough that I think it definitely will make an impact on the current Space Marine meta. Let's start off with the chapter litanies. There are 6 new litanies, one for each of the original chapters found in the Space Marine Codex. I will go over what each litany does and also give a few thoughts on how I think these litanies can be best used in your Space Marine armies. For White Scars, their chapter litany is called Strike Off the Head, and it states if this litany is inspiring, then when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in a friendly White Scars unit within 6 inches of this model, you can re-roll the wound roll. I think this is great in White Scars, especially because of the way current White Scars are currently being played competitively, which is essentially bringing 1 or 2 units of Assault Centurions to outflank with their stratagem Encirclement, and then buffing either one unit up with the spell Ride the Winds to give them +2 to their charge, or using a Chaplain with a jump pack to fly across the board while using the litany that creates an aura that gives +2 to charge. These cannot be combined for +4 to charge, so either way you're only getting +2 to charge on your unit, but they're just options in order to do so. White Scars also have a stratagem that allows them to roll 3 dice and pick the 2 highest for the charge roll, and when combined with one of those +2 to the charge and a command reroll, you're pretty much guaranteed to get those Centurions into combat out of Deep Strike. Spoiler for the next part of this video, there is an upgrade for a Chaplain to know 2 litanies instead of 1 and also cast 2 litanies instead of 1. So now you can have that jump pack captain not only give +2 to charge, but also give them rerolls for their wound rolls. Overall though, I do think this is really good in White Scars, especially because even without going the meta build with the Centurions, you are going to have melee elements in your White Scars army, and if you don't, I think you're playing them wrong. So yeah, I do think this litany will be useful in White Scars. For Imperial Fist, their chapter litany is called Fortress of Resolve, and it states, if this litany is inspiring, then when resolving an Overwatch attack made by a model in a friendly Imperial Fist unit within 6 inches of this model, a hit roll of 5 or 6 scores a hit. I feel like this helps out Imperial Fist a lot, since they mainly want to be played as a gunline that spams bolt weapons like heavy bolters, and this can help them fend off enemy charges, or at least whittle down the enemy units enough that the charge doesn't hurt as much and makes it easier to counterpunch on the next turn. It is only a 6-inch range though, but you can give the Chaplain the Vox Asperatum to make it 9 inches, but personally I feel like that relic is better used on a Captain upgraded to a Chapter Master for rerolls, and instead you can take a Warlord trait that accomplishes the same goal, and like I mentioned earlier, I will talk about this in the next segment of the video when we talk about Chaplains. For Salamanders, their chapter litany is called Selfless Saviors, and it states if this litany is inspiring, friendly Salamander units within 6 inches of this model can perform heroic interventions as if they were characters. This is one of my least favorite chapter litanies. It's still good, but I don't think it's amazing. It can help out with a bit of board control, since if your opponent wants to move block your stuff by putting cheap chaff infantry right in their face, then you can just heroically intervene on them and remove that roadblock. It can also be useful in other situations, but again, this one isn't necessarily my favorite. For Iron Hands, their chapter litany is called Medusan Furor, and it states, if this litany is inspiring, add 1 to the strength characteristics of model and friendly Iron Hands units while they are within 6 inches of this model. Like the Salamander's litany, I think this can be useful, but not amazing, especially since Iron Hands are like Imperial Fist, and they want to be spamming heavy weapons and shooting their opponent off the table. They can do close combat and are decent at it, but it's not really the main focus of the army. So I think it would be better to bring other litanies like the +1 to hit or +1 to wound when you're shooting. For Ultramarines, their chapter litany is called March of McCraig, and it states, if this litany is inspiring, then when an advance roll or charge roll is made for a friendly Ultramarines unit within 6 inches of this model, you can reroll any or all dice rolls of 1. I think this litany could be helpful if you're playing an Ultramarine list that wants to get into close combat, and there are definitely builds that are good at doing that, but the fact it's only rerolls of 1 and not just full rerolls, I think it makes it a bit lackluster since it really only affects 16% of your charge and advance rolls. And I don't think that's really worth replacing something like +2 to charge litany or +1 to hit or +1 to wound when shooting litanies. I could see possibly taking this litany and the +2 to charge litany on the same Chaplain with an upgrade that I'm going to talk about in the next segment, but I still think there would be better combos like the +2 to charge and +1 attack, strength, and damage litany to boost the Chaplain himself. And the last chapter litany to talk about is the Raven Guard's litany, and it's called Swift as the Raven, and it states, if this litany is inspiring, select one friendly Raven Guard unit within 6 inches of this model. That unit can shoot in a turn in which it fell back. If that unit can fly, it can charge in a turn that it fell back. I think this litany is very good, but also very situational. In theory, I think it could work incredibly well on a jump pack unit like Shrike or a Smash Captain, or even regular Assault Marines or Vanguard Vets. But at the same time, I think there are other things you can do with the Codex that are just better instead of turning a jump pack unit into a White Scar unit for that turn essentially. It could also be very useful to use on something like a Thunderfire Cannon or a shooting unit that doesn't have fly, so you don't lose out on shooting in that turn. So it does give options. You can use it on the fly units to allow them to charge something else, or you can use it on shooting units so that way they don't miss out on shooting because they got tied up in the previous turn. Overall, I think it can be useful, but with the current meta Raven Guard builds, I don't think it's very practical, and I do think there are better options for litanies for those builds. And that's it for all the chapter specific litanies. It is stated that successor chapters can take these litanies as well. You just change the main keyword to be your successor chapter keyword so it works on them. For example, if you're playing Crimson Fists, you can use the Imperial Fist litany because its keyword will change from Imperial Fists to Crimson Fists. Now let's go over the new character upgrade stratagems. These stratagems upgrade certain characters and give them new abilities, and also open up new warlord traits or relics for these characters as well. All of these upgrade stratagems are meant to be used before the battle, so just like upgrading a chapter master or veteran intercessors. The first upgrade stratagem is for the Chaplain, which I briefly mentioned earlier. This is a 1 command point stratagem and can only be done once per battle, and it upgrades a Chaplain that is not a named character. It allows your Chaplain to know 1 additional litany and also allows them to cast an additional litany a turn, so they can generate 2 litanies and cast 2 litanies. This is very good by itself, because then you only need to take 1 Chaplain to be able to get some cool combos like the +1 to hit and +1 to wound litanies, or +2 to charges and +1 strength, attack, and damage for the Chaplain himself. As for the new warlord traits that come along with this upgrade, they can be given to the upgraded Chaplain. The first is called Wise Orator, and it allows you to reroll failed litany casts. The second is called Bellowing Firebrand, and it increases auras your Chaplain has by 3 inches, which makes all of his auras 9 inches. And no, you cannot combine this with the relic Vox Asperatum for 12-inch auras, since it was FAQ'd that the Vox Asperatum only increases auras to a maximum of 9 inches. So save that relic for a chapter master and use this warlord trait on the Chaplain. You can also combine both of these warlord traits using any of the stratagems from the supplements that allow you to take multiple warlord traits on a single character. So you could technically reroll failed litanies and have increased range on all your auras. It's pretty nifty. Personally, I really love this combo and I'll probably be using this in my own army. Since in my Space Marine games that I've played, I've actually failed my litanies way more often than I would like to admit. For the relics you can take, there is one that gives the Chaplain a 3+ invulnerable save. This is perfect if you want to take a Smash Chaplain since it makes him more survivable. Basically, it gives him a Storm Shield. In the second relic option you have, it stops your opponent from rerolling any hit rolls, wound rolls, or damage rolls made against your Chaplain. This can also be very beneficial to a Smash Chaplain since he's going to get in there and probably take some damage. Personally, I don't know which one is better. I think I lean towards the 3+ invulnerable save, but I do think both of these relics can have a place if you have a Smash Chaplain. The next upgrade for a character is for Techmarines. You pay 1 command point to make a Techmarine into a Master of the Forge, and this changes his healing ability to heal 3 wounds instead of D3. The stratagem can only be used once per game. As for the warlord traits, the first gives the Techmarine an aura to reroll 1s for friendly chapter vehicles within 6 inches of him. I think this would be pretty good in vehicle heavy builds, something like Iron Hands, but only if the Iron Hands are in a soup list, since Iron Hands get rerolls already from their chapter doctrine. It could be used in other chapters, but personally I think other chapters have different and better playstyles that don't revolve around spamming vehicles. So personally, I don't think I'd take this for anything but Iron Hands, and again, that's only if they're in an Imperial soup list. The second warlord trait gives +1 attack to friendly chapter dreadnought models within 6 inches of them. I think this could be alright in a build that spams melee dreads, but I don't really see that type of list being optimal for any chapter, to be honest. I could be wrong, but that's just my initial thoughts. For the relics, I feel like they are both kind of lackluster since they just increase the melee damage of the Techmarine, and Techmarines aren't really the best in melee to begin with, so I kind of feel feel like it's just polishing a turd at that point, if you know what I mean. The next upgrade stratagem is for librarians. This stratagem turns your librarian into a chief librarian and allows them to know one additional psychic power and gives them an additional psychic deny roll. This stratagem can only be used once per battle. This is very good for obvious reasons. More spells equals more options, and more options is usually always better. For the Warlord traits, the first gives +1 to cast for the first spell the librarian attempts to manifest each phase. This can be combined with other relics that give +1 to cast, so that way your first spell can have +2 to cast, which means that critical spell that you want to go off will have a better chance of doing so. The one downside I can see with this is that because it has to be the first spell you cast, you can't really cast a bunch of other spells to try and bait out enemy deny rolls, so you just gotta hope that your roll is good enough that they can't deny, or you have to position your librarian out of the denial range. The second Warlord trait allows your librarian to mix and match spells from any discipline they have access to. So if you take a librarian in Phobos armor, you can know 3 spells because of this upgrade, and you can take 1 spell from the Obscuration discipline, 1 spell from the regular Space Marine discipline, and 1 spell from your chapter discipline, or any combination you choose. This is extremely valuable, since it opens up so many options and pretty much guarantees that you can get 3 good spells that will be useful in your game, instead of being stuck with 1 or 2 good spells you actually wanted, and 1 spell that's just kinda there. For the relics, we have an upgraded Force Sword, which is pretty good but not amazing, and a relic that increases the librarian's Psychic Hood ability by 12 inches, which could come in handy against armies that bring some good spells that you really want to deny. The next upgrade stratagem is for the Apothecary. This stratagem turns an Apothecary into a Chief Apothecary and allows them to re-roll the dice when trying to heal or revive models. This stratagem can only be used once per battle. The first Warlord trait you can give this Apothecary gives him a 6-inch aura that gives friendly chapter infantry and bikers a 6+ feel no pain. And if they're Iron Hands, it gives them a 5+ feel no pain. This is okay, but not amazing. Could be pretty decent in Iron Hands though, but again, not necessarily amazing. And the second Warlord trait is, in my opinion, the better of the two, and it allows your Apothecary to heal or revive twice in a single turn, and it can be done on the same unit. With the way this Warlord trait is worded though, I feel like it needs an FAQ, because it could be interpreted that he can heal 2 different units, and then heal both those units again for a second time for 4 heals altogether. I don't think that was the intention, but we will have to wait for the FAQ to find out. As for the relics, one is an upgraded pistol, which is okay but not great, and the other is an aura that gives a 5+ invulnerable save to infantry and bikers, but it's only a 1-inch aura, so kinda meh. I could see this being kind of useful for Devastator Centurions, since the Apothecary will most likely be hanging around with those Centurions anyways, but with the Centurions 2+ save, they don't really need the invul except against a few weapons in the game, especially if the Centurions are in cover, but reviving 2 Centurion models a turn would be pretty nifty. So I think Apothecaries may have a place in certain builds now as well. The next upgrade stratagem is for the Ancient. It turns an Ancient into a Chapter Ancient and increases the range of its banner aura by 3 inches for a 9-inch aura. Again, this cannot be comboed with the Vox Asperatum, since it was FAQ'd that the Vox Asperatum can only make auras go to a maximum of 9 inches. This stratagem is also only once per game. This upgrade can help you fit more units into your banner aura, since it is now 9 inches instead of 6, which means more units will get to shoot or attack when they die, which obviously is pretty good. The first Warlord trait you can give to this character is a 6-inch aura that allows units to heroically intervene as if they were characters, which is pretty cool but not that very practical, except for deterring the opponent from hard move blocking you with cheap infantry. The second Warlord trait is a 3-inch aura that gives objectives secured to the units within it, and if a unit already has objectives secured, then they count as 2 models. This can be really good as well. It can help a low model count army secure objectives from the enemy. Combine this with the other Warlord trait to heroically intervene with those units, and if your opponent even tries to steal the objective back from you, you can just heroically intervene to them and punch them in the face and lower their model count. For the relics, the first relic makes it so that when a unit shoots or attacks due to dying within the banner aura, they resolve their shots with a ballistic skill or weapon skill of 2+. I think this might actually bring Ancients back into the meta, since sure, you only get to shoot on rolls of 4+ when you die, but when you do shoot with those units, they shoot at an increased efficiency, and the aura is 9 inches, so you get a lot more models to be able to shoot when they die. And the second relic makes it so that when a model gets to attack in close combat when it dies, it gains an extra attack. This could be alright in melee builds, maybe Ultramarines, since after this book, I'm pretty convinced that Ultramarines should be running up the board shooting and then punching stuff to death later, so this could be beneficial to them, but to be honest, I still think that the original relic that allows you to shoot or attack at a ballistic skill or weapon skill of 2+ is much better. Also, a cool thing about Ultramarines with this Chapter Ancient is that they already have a Chapter Ancient model with the appropriate keywords. So if you take that model, you don't have to pay to upgrade another Chapter Ancient, and because he has the correct keywords, you can give him any of these Warlord traits and relics. And the final upgrade stratagem is for the Company Champion. This stratagem turns your company champion into a chapter champion, and increases their attack and leadership by 1, and gives them an ability that makes them -1 to hit in close combat. The first warlord trait that they can take makes it so that when your champion is attacked in melee combat, on hit rolls of 1, you roll a dice, and on a 4+, the enemy suffers a mortal wound. So it's kinda like the suppurating plate from the Death Guard in a way, but not as good. The second warlord trait is a 6-inch aura that gives rerollable charges to friendly chapter units. This is the trait I'd prefer if you wanted to give this guy a warlord trait, since it could combo well with the Chaplain, who also gives bonuses to charge. As for the relics, the first relic upgrades a mastercrafted power sword to be strength +2, -4 AP, 3 flat damage. I think this relic is actually really good, and it allows you to make a beatstick champion. The AP and damage is pretty damn good. And the second relic gives the champion a 2+ save and a 4+ invulnerable. So if you want your champion to be a bit more durable instead of killy, you can go with this relic instead. And that's it for the new generic Space Marine rules. And I think they are really good. But to be honest, it's starting to feel a little much for people who don't play Space Marines, since Space Marines just got a new codex, plus new supplements, and now they get rules from this book as well. So it's kinda feels bad, man, for other armies in the game who are still waiting for their updates. With that said, Chaos did get some cool things in this book, basically mini supplements for each legion, and I assume there will be more Psychic Awakening stuff for other armies in the future. So I have a feeling other armies will be getting some love pretty soon, and it won't feel like Space Marines are the only ones getting new rules. As for which things I like the most out of these new Space Marine rules, I love the addition of chapter-specific litanies. It gives even more uniqueness to those chapters to separate them from each other, and some of the litanies themselves seem to be really strong. The one that I think made it out the best though is the Imperial Fist litany. That Overwatch on 5+ aura should be very strong in that army. As for the character upgrades, I think the Librarian, Chaplain, and Ancient were the best ones. Those units were already good and are now even better, whereas the other units were okay and are now good, at least in my opinion. And that's going to be it for this video. There are 2 other videos featuring rules from this book, one for the Black Templar supplement, which is featured in this book, and the other is for the mini Chaos Space Marine supplements that are featured in this book. Those videos should be out later today or within the next few days, so make sure to check those out if you play those armies, or if you're just curious to see what kind of upgrades they received. Also, don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check me out on Patreon if you'd like to help support the channel even further, or if you'd like to benefit from any of the rewards I offer, like personal coaching, custom list building, or access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord server. Anyways, thanks to all my current patrons for being awesome, thanks to all of you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.